So these classes are geared towards working with the diaphragm in sometimes yoga breathing, sometimes just ordinary breathing. And of course, we know what that is. That's the breathing muscle that separates the chest from the abdomen. And if you bring your hands up and cup your hands around your lower ribs, that's about where the diaphragm sits. It's a beautiful muscle, and when you breathe in, it drops down into the abdomen. You get a little bit of an abdominal massage there. And then when you breathe out to expel all the air from your lungs, it moves up into your chest. And it's like a jellyfish shape. And it rises and drops. And the thing we don't often think about is the back of the diaphragm. So if you bring your hands around and place the flat of your palms on your lower back, what you might notice then is that you can breathe into the back ribs there. And sometimes they feel a little bit rusty. And so breathing into the back ribs, to the back of the diaphragm, actually feels really nice to open up that whole area of the mid-back. And then when your hands are on the side ribs, then you can breathe into the sides, not only of your rib cage, but of the lungs. And you get this really full breath. So we're going to work with that in a couple of ways in a moment. But we'll start, because it's still wintry weather, with a breathing exercise that's very warming. So come on up and stand in Tadasana, in the basic pose where you're standing on your own 2 feet. And then bring your hands across your abdomen. So one hand is below your navel, one hand is above your navel. And these are punctuated exhalations, and they're really good for clearing the nasal passages, which is a good thing to do in more wintry weather too. So let's try that. Just a short punctuated exhalation, then the natural recovery to the inhalation. So let's say we go for 20 rounds, then give it a little rest, and do 3 cycles like that. So keep your legs firmly supporting you, but soft behind your knees, so you're not locking your knees. And let's begin. And then just relaxing for a moment. Just check your shoulders, that your shoulders are relaxed. And let's go another cycle. And giving it a break there. Maybe a few shoulder rolls. And let's go one more set. Yeah, so good abdominal exercise there. And also, I came prepared with my tissue box. And as I was saying, clearing nasal passages at the same time. Let's look at one more part of the anatomy, which is the lower ribs. So we're thinking that's generally the area of the diaphragm, the bottom of the sternum. And do this with me. Lift your arms out in front of you and up. And then let your lower ribs come forward as though you're doing a back bend. And then exhale and lower your arms. And at this point, we don't really want to be doing a back bend. We're just doing some warm-up movements. What you can do instead is keep the lower ribs contained, so the bottom of the sternum still is connected with the abdominal area. So when you bring up your arms again and have that level of containment, you can actually stretch the upper part of your sternum and lengthen it, and exhale down. So if we do this from the side, there's no flaring of the ribs forward and back bending. There's just a connection with the ribs and the abdomen. Okay? That's going to come in handy when we do a few other poses through the lesson. I guess the last thing I'd like to say is the bottom of the sternum, when you connect it with the top of the pubic bone, you can contain the abdominal organs neatly without letting them drop forward. So think about this whole frontal body and these just subtle adjustments that we can make. So see if you can feel that for yourself, the kind of shortening of the abdominal area from the pubic bone to the bottom sternum. And you get a nice feeling of your core muscles there without tensing them. So we're going to move on now to a lying down position with one of your yoga belts. So if you take up your yoga belt and double it up, or whatever you're using that's similar to this, and then double it again, you get this kind of, not very thick, but folded band. I'm going to ask you to lie that on your mat, and then lie your back, so you're going to be face up, with that belt supporting the back of the diaphragm. So see if you can place it where a little bit in the area of the back floating ribs. And notice when you're lying down and you press against the belt like that, that gives that tone to the abdomen. And you feel really stable on the back portion of your body. Now we'll do some very simple exercises here. So extend out your legs. And then on an inhalation, bring your arms up overhead and point your toes away from you, but keep that connection with the back of the diaphragm. And then exhale and bring the arms forward and down, and draw your toes back towards your knees. So the arms overhead stretch, the feet plantarflexion, pointing away from you, arms back by your side, and dorsiflexion, toes towards your knees. And then this is so simple that we can use a little bit of control here, and feel as you do these movements that you're working with your breath, inhale and exhale, but you're also doing a few of those suggested movements with the frontal body. So the abdomen is firm and the front floating ribs are connected with the upper part of the abdomen. They're not lifting up towards the ceiling. See if you can get the sense of pressing back through the back of the diaphragm and feeling like you're able to ground yourself there. So simple, but it brings a whole different feeling to a simple movement. And then let's complete just arms by your side. Let your feet relax, let your legs drop out. Bend your right knee into your chest and hold at the back of your right knee. Draw the knee in close to you. And at the same time, keep the right buttock bone down towards the floor. On an inhalation, extend your leg up. On an exhalation, let the leg fold down. Your heels towards your buttock when the leg is bent. Inhale, stretch up. See if you can keep the contact with the back of the diaphragm. And continuing, just warming up your knees. We'll do some standing poses a little bit later. This is really good for them. And then imagine that you've got a weight on your foot when you're extending the leg. And perhaps that'll lead to you working the knee joint a little bit more. As though you're pushing up against resistance. Feel the tone in the quadriceps, the front thigh muscle. Good. And then hold this as a static stretch. So your legs straight up. And feel that the right buttock is still firmly on the floor. And the sitting bone moving towards the floor, not up towards the ceiling. Okay. I'm going to take my right foot back to the floor and take the belt out from where I've been lying on the back diaphragm, but still see if you can have your a feeling sensation there in the back body. Then slip your belt around the right foot. Re-extend your right leg. Beautiful stretch behind your knee to your right heel. And then take up the belt in your right hand. Drop your left arm out to the side. And take the right leg a little bit out to the right side. And stop when you start to lift off the left side of your body. And in fact, just to help with that idea of keeping the weight on the back of your diaphragm, can you feel when you're breathing in a little bit more breath into the left lung? Even as you're taking your right leg out to the right. And then, because we can, and it's a nice warming movement for the knee again, alternately bend and straighten the right leg out to the right. See if you can keep grounded through the left side of your back, and the abdominal muscles are firm. These are all ways of improving focused awareness. Really, that's such a big part of yoga. It's really helpful generally in life. All right, we're going to take the leg to the center. Swap your grip over to the left hand. Drop your right arm to the right. And in that crossover, we're taking the leg into a stretch for the outer right leg, especially the outer right hip, but keep the right hip onto the floor. See if you could still bring through that sense of pressing back through the back of the diaphragm. And then just explore what that would be like to bend and straighten in this position. Right leg bends a little, and perhaps that sensation of pushing out against resistance. Anytime we work with resistance like that, we're working with strengthening as well as flexibility. All right, and then come back to the middle position. Take the belt, the strap back into your right hand. Bend your right knee down towards your, we'll say your right armpit. And my right shin bone is perpendicular to the floor. This is nicknamed happy baby pose. We say half happy baby pose, I guess. And drawing that knee down. And at the same time, if you can do these two things at the same time, move your right buttock bone towards the floor. Okay, we've done well there. And then extend that leg, release the strap, And take the right leg out alongside the left. Good. Let's take a little break, a mental health break. Separate your feet. Keep your arms loose by your side, and then circle your feet. Which is also a nice warming movement for what's to come, whatever we get up to. And circling the other way. All right, and then completing that, bring your legs and your feet together. Bend your left knee into your chest. Hold at the back of the knee. Let the left heel drop towards your buttock. And then straighten and bend. Maybe a kind of feeling of grace in what you're doing. So the movement through the knee joint is like a gliding movement. And then pushing up as though I've lowered the ceiling, and you could touch the ceiling and push up against that resistance. And then just the straight leg. And then that sensation of pushing up. I've got these nice 3-kilo weights in my studio, as though you had one of those sandbag weights on your foot. Feel the quadriceps engage when you adopt that picture. And then slip the belt onto your left foot. Pause for a moment and bring attention to the back body again, and pressing down through the back of the diaphragm, breathing into the back and the sides diaphragm. And then let's take left hand to the belt, right arm out to the side, and track that leg out, while keeping the right side of your back, your shoulder blade, your shoulder on the floor. Good. Notice if you're recruiting any muscles from your front neck or your top chest. Can you soften there and still maintain the work through the leg, strengthening and stretching? Good. Bring that into bent knee position and straighten. Left knee bends a little bit and then pushes out. The right side is still firmly anchored. Breathing into the right lung. Okay, good. And then let's track the other way and across to the right side. Right hand holds the belt, left leg to the right. We always notice the difference between one side and the other, which is often the case. This is my tighter outer hip. Have to give it a little extra love, and including now bending and straightening. The head of the thigh bone, the left thigh bone, it's firmly back into the hip joint. All right, and then let's take that half happy baby pose. Take the left hand onto the strap, draw the left knee down towards the left armpit. If you're supple here enough to do it, or if your arms are long enough, or maybe your legs short enough, you could hold your left foot. That takes the movement to more extreme position. And then grabbing the belt, straightening the leg, release the leg and the foot, the belt, and rest that leg back onto the floor. Let your feet drop out, let your legs drop out. Take a moment. Always nice to consolidate after you've done a yoga pose instead of running from one to the next. Feel the sensations there. For me, it feels like my front hips are more open. Then bend your knees into your chest. Hold at the front of your knees, one hand each knee, and give a little circle. So what are we circling here? We're circling not just the knees, but the thighs and the hips. Just a small movement. Go the other way. And see if you can keep, what is it like if you anchor back into the back of the diaphragm again? Breathing into the back and the sides of the diaphragm. All right, and then rest your 2 feet on the ground. And pause for a moment. Feel your footprints. Right foot, left foot. Notice when you really press down as though you're going to leave an imprint on your mat, that starts to engage your buttock muscles too, or at least it does for me. So do that simple movement. Press down through your footprints. Tilt your pelvis slightly. And then go the other way and be light on your footprints and tilt the tailbone down. Go back and forth between those two movements. Tailbone lifts up a little bit, not your buttocks, but just your tail, and then down. Now let's couple that with your breath. Exhale, tailbone lifts a little bit. Inhale, tailbone down, a little more of your natural lumbar arch. Go back and forth. And especially when you're exhaling, feel the tone in your abdomen. And it's very natural now to move on to a bridge and lifting up the pelvis away from the floor. And then back down. Keep your knees tracking straight. Keep the outer hips compact, contained towards the midline of your body. And let's continue with a few of these movements that are so healthy for your spine. Inhale, lifting up. And the ribs, rather than flaring towards your head, there's still a sense of them contained. And the spine rolls up and down like a wheel along the vertebral column. Let's hold the last one in the lifted position. Feel your footprints again. Right, left. And you've lifted maybe up to the most height that you want to get out of this pose. Contain the hips. And then turn your arms out. Turn your palms, your elbows, your shoulders out. Soften at the front of your neck. And allow your chin to come towards the jugular notch. Then lower all the way down. Vertebrae by vertebrae, if you can come that very slow descent. And then when your buttocks touch down, turn your palms over and relax through your shoulders to your fingertips. You've done a little back bend. Let's do a contraction for the abdominal area, which is a flexion of your spine. You've extended, now you're going to flex. So bend your knees up towards your chest. Bring your hand across your abdomen, across the navel, and then take the opposite hand and support the back of your head at the base of your skull. Going to lift up head and chest slightly off the floor. Look up towards the ceiling then rather than towards your navel, and draw the abdomen into the body. Exhale, lower down just your torso. The knees are still bent towards you. And then feel the abdomen draw into the body as you lift up all over again. And lowering back down. Careful that you're not recruiting the neck muscles to lift up. Feel the neck is still long and coming up again. And last time coming down and feet down and arms by your side. Fairly safe way to work your core muscles. All right, let's do one more counter pose before we move on. So keep your arms out at a little distance from your body. Bring your knees up towards your chest. And then do a crossover and bring your knees towards your right armpit. Just towards your right armpit, not all the way to your arm or all the way to the floor. And then feel the left side of your body. Turn to the left. Press your left shoulder. Press the left arm towards the floor. And then keep the knees in tight towards your ribs. Do another crossover to the left side. Look to the right side. There's your anchor on the right side. Keep a curled position as much as you can. And then back in. One more each side. Take your own pace with this. It's always a good idea. And then we're up to the last one. And when you bring your legs across this time, let's keep going across the body. Bring your opposite arm across too. And we're going to come up into an all fours position. All right, and taking that kneeling position, look at your hands, open the spacing between your fingers, spacing between your index finger and your thumb. Look at the elbow joints and see if you can adjust the forearms so that the crease of the elbow are facing each other. And then this is such a natural for working with the diaphragm again. If you drop your front ribs towards the floor, then you're exaggerating that movement at the front of the diaphragm. So see if you can contain that again and draw the ribs slightly into the body and towards the abdominal area. The navel lifts, and we're pretty much in neutral cat pose. And then let's create movement as a challenge. And inhale and lift your chest and look out towards the horizon, shoulders back. Exhale, lift the back of the diaphragm and broaden your shoulders as your chin comes in towards your chest. Take it as slow as you can to go back and forth between those two movements. Spine flexes, the spine extends. And you're thinking very much of the breath here. Inhale without the ribs flaring, and exhale in breathing into the back and the sides of your body. We'll go one more here. Inhaling to exhaling. Open up the shoulder blades out towards the side ribs, and then come to neutral position with the tone in the abdomen, the front floating ribs connected with the abdomen. And then from here, let's do a strengthening movement. We're going to balance our weight on the three limbs, your hands and onto your left knee. Lift your right leg behind you and straighten that leg and extend behind the knee. Look out towards the horizon. Keep the tone in your abdomen. And then release right knee to the floor and left leg. point your toe, extend behind your knee, make it a beautiful, like almost balletic movement, and then back to base. I'm going to give my wrists a rest, and you can too. Bend your elbows, bring your elbows in towards your knees, fold your buttocks back towards your hips, relax your shoulders. We can do a little more work here in cat pose and coming right back into the fray. I noticed when I lifted my right leg that I shifted onto my left side. So see if you can keep the hips stable and where they are. Press your hands, press into your left knee, and then without swaying the hips to the left, raise your right leg again. Use your hamstrings, right hamstrings, and your right buttock to extend the right hip and lift that leg and look out. Good. And replacing right knee. Balance there without a sway, or as much as possible avoiding that to the right. Lift your left leg. Lift it high, high as you can, but also it's more important the form. So you're using the back of the left thigh and the buttock to lift. All right, we're going to go one more round and add the arm movement. And when you lift your right leg, you're just going to balance on your right hand, left knee, and left arm up and forward. Fold in, right hand down, left hand down, right knee down. Good pause. Now you might be correcting back to center, which means that there probably was a sway there. So as much as possible, feel the outer hips contract, and then left leg, right arm. Good. And then releasing and back to center. Were the two sides the same? I did pretty well as far as evenness there, but I've been practicing this week too. And then come to child's pose, bring your elbows back. Maybe fold your hands or fold your hands into fists and rest your head onto your hands. Drop your shoulders. Just stay there a moment longer and connect with the back body again and the back of the diaphragm, and breathing into the back diaphragm, into the side diaphragm. Picture the diaphragm moving up and down. All right, and then we can make a very beautiful transition here from cat pose to downward facing dog pose. So replacing your hands, opening the spacing between your fingers, and then lift from the back of your diaphragm, broaden your shoulders, tuck your toes under, and then lift your knees and your hips. When your hips are high, we want to lift them a little bit higher. Come up onto the backs of your toes. Allow your head to rest down, maybe in that space between the biceps, between the upper part of the arms. I've got my knees a little bit bent, just showing some kindness to my knees, but I've done all that stretching in the lying down Supta Padangusthasana cycle. So buttock bones high, knees slightly bent, stretch away through your shoulders, and then feel into, you can't see it, you can only sense it, into the back of your diaphragm. Breathe there, and slowly lower your heels.
Have you flattened or dipped your back when you lowered your heels? And can you still keep the fullness there through breathing into the back and the sides? All right. And then heels up, knees down, child's pose. And let all effort go out of your shoulders. And that was so nice. Let's go all over again. So from cat pose, the approach is a really good one. Lifting through your upper part of your back, drawing your navel up. Feel like you're pushing down as you push up into downward facing dog pose. And just lift your head for a moment and look at your forearms again, where the crease of your elbows is. Can you have that? Can you turn the forearms slightly so that crease of the elbows facing towards each other? And then broaden your collarbones. And see if you can lengthen the sternum from the bottom of the sternum to the jugular notch. And at the same time, staying mindful of the breath. This time, heels closer to the ground, possibly, if you can get there. And then your head in line with the upper part of your arms. And finally, lengthen the back of your neck from C7, the base of your neck, to the crown of your head. Our exit is through Uttanasana, so begin to step forward and stepping forward. And then when you're close to your hands, separate your feet hip-width distance. Fold your arms so that your hands rest in the crease of your elbows. And hang the arms heavily towards the floor. It seems quite easeful and natural to be able to breathe into the back body here. And at the same time, keep that kind of shortness between the bottom of the sternum and the top of the pubic bone, so the abdomen lifts up into the body. Long upper arms, the humerus bone hanging heavy down to the elbows. And then you're going to come up into chair pose from here. So drop your arms, bring a slight squatting movement, bring your knees slightly forward over your ankles, and then bring your arms up alongside your ears. Good. So looking down at this point or looking out towards the end of your mat, sit your buttocks back down a little bit lower, and then push into your heels and come all the way up, and arms down by your side. Good work. Let's just take straight into chair pose. Take chair pose, bend your knees, come into that small squat, bring your arms up, and imagine that you're holding a weight between your hands. What kind of weight? Like a little, what do they call them? Medicine balls. They're very heavy. So feel that as you press your palms towards that hold onto the ball, that your upper arms engage. And then inhale and come up, and exhale, arms down by your side. Good. A few shoulder rolls. All right, let's move on to the standing poses. And let's have you face towards the short end of your mat. And have a yoga block nearby on an as-need basis.
Good. So standing in the middle of your mat and in Tadasana. Soften behind your knees. Relax your buttocks. And have a relaxed extension through the elbow joint, just looking out towards the horizon. So your basic mountain pose. Step right foot forward and left foot back. We'll take warrior one pose. So adjust your distance for that and adjust your hips. When you square the hips, that's such a familiar cue for the pose. Make sure that your hips are level too. And then we're going to bring the arms up overhead at the same time as you bend the front knee. So a little movement for the knee. Inhale, bend the knee, bring the arms up just alongside your ears. Exhale, lower the arms down. I want you to have your hands across your abdomen again. Draw that area into your body. And remember to keep the front floating ribs contained as we do this movement. Inhale and raise the arms up, abdomen's back. Exhale, arms down to the side. Let's go again. So nice, once again, a gliding movement, and exhale. Next time we're going to hold the pose there and bring attention to the back leg. Draw the outer left hip forward and feel like you can tone the back leg. Energize it, stretching behind your knee all the way to your heel. Soften those front floating ribs. And completing and arms down and straight front leg. Good. Let's do another movement there. And just because we can, that'll work into the upper part of the back and maybe the back of the diaphragm. So take it's still right leg forward, bend the right leg, bring the arms up into goalpost position. So the elbows are bent, squeeze through the armpits a little bit and bring the shoulder blades a little closer together. Tilt the chin, look up. Exhale, bring your arms down by your side. Inhale, let's go there again. Chin up, lift your gaze, feel into your back leg again. Exhale, arms down. Once more, here we go. Good. All these arm movements connecting with the front of the diaphragm. Keep the diaphragm soft and breathing into the back of the diaphragm, the sides of the diaphragm. And exhale, release. And then step left foot to right and right foot back. Good. Settle. Feel stable on both feet. Perhaps lean a little bit into the back footprint. Good. And then the abdomen contained, these ribs soft and into the frontal body, and then the breath into the back of the diaphragm and the sides of the diaphragm as we breathe in. Inhale. And breathe out. And smooth going here. And down. I think I mixed up a few arm movements there. It happens. All right, let's keep the arms straight this time. As you bend your front leg, then adjust the hips. So it's on this side, the left hip comes back a little bit, the front of the right hip forward. Hips level and square. Good. And then release the arms down. Let's try goalpost this time and bending the front knee. Good. Feel like your hands are pressing against a pane of glass. Feel the tone in the upper arms and the work in the upper part of your back. And exhale, release. And here we go. And down. And let's hold this time. Good. Core muscles engaged. The breath into the back body. Look up. Can you feel some length through the front of your sternum? All the way up to the front of your neck. And exhale, release. Step right foot to left. Tadasana. Good. Drop your shoulders. All right, Parsvattanasana, sort of the asymmetrical version of forward fold. So a shorter stance, slightly shorter stance, right foot forward, left foot back. I'm going to keep the legs straight this time. Square and level through the hips, abdomen compact, all right? And then when you bring your arms up, palms face forward, and we've got a little bit of control through the diaphragm ribs at the front. They're resting downwards. And then come halfway down towards the floor. Press into your front footprint. Keep the right knee off the lock, just a little bit bent. And then inhale and come up. Good. Let's do a few of those bows forward and let your body adapt to stabilizing when you do that. Inhale and exhale. All right. And then release your hands down. Wherever they land will be right for you. And bring your chin down too. See if you can come into a deeper forward bend, not even moving down so much, but lifting the abdomen away from the front thigh. Now the front floating ribs fold into the body and down towards the two sides of the navel. I have a block handy and I can rest my hands onto the top of the yoga block. Or as you stay there a little bit longer, you might bring your hands further down your leg or onto the floor. And to release from the pose, bend your front knee, lean forward, inhale, and bring your arms up. Straighten that front knee, exhale, arms down, step left foot to right, and right foot back. All right, steady. On your 2 feet. Adjusting the hips. So as the right hip comes around and forward, the left hip draws back and down. And then let's do our bow forward. Lean back into the back leg a little bit. Feel that footprint. Inhale, exhale, out and down. Good pause. Inhale, come up. Make that front foot strong. Exhale, forward and down. And inhale. One more time. Coming forward, roll the front of the right hip forward and then reach down wherever your hands land. All well and good. Bend your front knee just a little. Press into the inside of your left foot. And there's a place for your hands onto the block or onto the shin bone or onto the floor. Feel where the front of the diaphragm folds in, and you've got that shortness between the bottom of the sternum and the top of the pubic bone as the abdomen lifts up.
All right, now you're going to flex the left knee a little bit, press into your left footprint, use your arms to help you lift your chest and bring them all the way up, straightening the front leg, lowering the arms, step forward, Tadasana. And good work. All right, and then let's prepare a place for an inversion. And we worked on this one last week, which is what I call a low shoulder stand. Now, if you prefer, you could do your own version of shoulder stand. But this one works really well, especially if you haven't been doing shoulder stand regularly. So I'm going to use a bolster and set myself up at the wall. I think this way. So my buttocks are going to go here. And I've got a belt to keep my legs bound together. I like doing that because that way I can let go of the legs. I don't have to use my muscles to keep them together. So I've taken a lying down position on the end of the bolster away from the wall. And when I straighten my legs onto the wall, I can get this approximately 45-degree angle of my legs. So a little bit of an inversion, not fully inverted, but also stretch an opening for the back of my chest, where we've been focusing somewhat. Now this is very much a pose that you need to modify according to your own anatomy and for your own comfort. If this is too strong, an alternative pose is legs up the wall. We'll be here for a few minutes. So I've got a belt on just above my knees, as I said, just to keep my legs together and avoid letting them drop out. No effort there. I've done this pose quite a few times, so I sort of got there on the first try. But keep going in maybe different distances from the wall if you feel that the pose isn't quite right for your body. Draw your shoulders back from your neck, where your arms rest out at a distance from the side of your body, like Shavasana. Let go of the weight of them. Now you've been there long enough so that you can feel that area that we've been focusing on. The bottom back ribs. And connect the breath there. And with the chest so beautifully opened in this position, you might find it easier to breathe into the side ribs, into the armpit area, We'll take just one more minute here. And maybe in this last minute, fold your hands onto the bottom of the sternum, the ribs out to the side. Let your palms just rest onto your lower front ribs. And feel your breath there. And a more circumferential breath. The breath goes around the diaphragmatic band, front, back, sides, touching into, almost caressing that band on the inside of your body. Feel every exhalation that you can release and soften the belly muscles. So the abdominal wall just hangs back like a loose, very loose sling of muscles. I'm ready to move on, so bringing my feet off the wall and onto the top of the bolster. And the belt comes off. And then place one foot on each side of the bolster and move back. Instead of rolling to the side to get up, move back until your torso is resting down, supported by the floor. Another breath or two. And let's make space on the mat for a lying down twist. I'm going to lie on my back with my feet as wide as a mat distance, wide apart. This is a favorite lying down twist. So the arms out to the side. Drop the knees to the right side. With that wide distance, when the knees go right, you can introduce a hip stretch on the left side. So left knee a little nearer to the floor and stretching from your left waist to your left knee. Flip it over. Go left, look right. Right knee a little nearer to the floor and a tremendous stretch all along the right hip to the right knee. Let's go one step further. So this time when your knees drop to the right, take the left arm overhead along the floor and stretch it and increase that left side stretch. Turn your head towards your left arm. Tuck your chin in towards the armpit. And a long left lateral body. Other side. That right arm, a long, languorous stretch on your right arm from your whole right lateral body. Chin down, looking right. And that was so exquisite. Let's do it again.
I hope it was for you. Breathe into the left lung a little bit more. And then as we reverse, last side, knees to the left, breathe into the right lung, fill it all out with the breath. And then knees up and arms both by your side. Step your feet right in. Bend your knees into your chest and hug them in. From your bent knee position, roll over to the side, come up to a seated position. And we may have to improvise with the props. I have what I need here, and then see what you have in the way of a couple of blankets and a cushion to support the backs of your legs. And we're going to do Mountain Brook pose. That might not be a name that means anything to you, but it's kind of the shape of the pose once we get into it. So I've got a soft blanket in that shape, and I'm going to fold it back and forth on itself until I end up with a long rectangle, like so. That goes on the mat. And as we often do, another blanket folded. For me, it's in thirds. You might just have it in half. That's the support for your neck and your head. So we've got a head blanket. This blanket's going to support the back of your chest where your shoulder blades are. And finally, the lovely support for the backs of your knees. When you're lying down, a bolster. So I'm going to fiddle around until I get this to support me in the most comfortable and opening way, the way that I can feel most receptive to the pose. So there's my shoulder blade support with a little space between the other blanket which supports my head, and in that space I can leave my arms out to the side. And the arms just fit neatly into that space out to the side. So I've got the backs of my knees supported onto the bolster, the feet, the legs, the hips roll out. So whatever your version is of this, whether you have that number of props or whether you prop the same way, we're moving into the yoga relaxation. So this is the time for you to give yourself over to some self-care, some taking care of yourself in the quietness. The quietness of a introspective pose. It's often helpful to cover your eyes with a eye pillow or even a soft cloth. I've seen people use yoga belts to do that because they're always handy. Just that little bit of weight onto your eyes to help
allow the eyes to soften and block the light a little bit. So with your back body supported like this, you might find your way into the back of the diaphragm again. And the breath there moving into the back and the side ribs. And every exhalation allowing you to soften the front floating ribs and the abdomen. The body ripples over the props, the head supported and lifted slightly, the arms releasing, sinking down. The back chest lifted and opened with each breath. The buttocks, the hips sinking down, releasing down. And just in this last part of the relaxation, notice whether the eyes have fully relaxed. They reflect any movement or any activity in the brain. So take this last part just to relax and soften the eyes, letting them drop down, looking down, observing the breath, becoming increasingly pacified. It's always possible for you to stay longer in the reclining position, Shavasana. That's up to you. But it might also be time for you to become more active. Do that by some small movements through your hands and your feet. And only when you feel completely ready to do so, bend your knees up. And bring yourself onto the right side of your body. Bring the left arm across. Stay there, curled up, contained. And eventually, and very soon, we're going to sit together.
And once seated, and I think this is a appropriate and lovely thing to do, bring your hands together and let's rub them. And rubbing until imagining vigorously rubbing, sparks flying. And then once you've done that, then cover your eyes momentarily. And send the message through the hands, eyes relaxed, all the way back along the optic nerve right to the brain, relaxing the brain completely, emptying out. And then join your hands in your front chest in prayer position. Lift the elbows a little bit so you feel maybe a little more uplifted through the heart center. Bow your head to your own sweet heart. Feel the goodwill that we fund through doing the yoga practice. Such a privilege we have to be able to do that. And then we do that not just for our sake, but for all sentient beings. Send your goodwill out. Namaste. Thank you.